Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everyone. Today is National Fortune Cookie Day. It is July 20th, and we're going to be talking about Chinatowns, not just across America, but also around the world. We're going to go to Singapore, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Boston, New York City, San Francisco, and also touch on Los Angeles. And this topic was spearheaded by Jeffrey Spear. See, I had to do that. He's a branding expert, a food travel writer, and author. He's fun on our shows for sure. So keep up with him at spearwrites.com. So welcome back. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good, and I'm excited about our topic today because Chinatowns and Chinese food and all of that stuff is one of my favorite all-time destinations. Doesn't matter what city I'm in or what we're going out for dinner, if we can have Chinese or Asian and all that. I love that stuff.
And you just came back from New York City, right? Weren't you at the fancy food?
Yeah, but I was so tired by the time I finished my day that I ended up not going out, and I was very disappointed. But there was no more. I went to the train station, pulled up a bar stool, and had myself a double rum on the rocks.
Well, there you go. Now, did you find any good Asian food at the Fancy Food Festival?
No, this time around, I wasn't looking at Asian. I had a specific agenda with certain topics, and so I didn't go into the various country pavilions at all. The only one I visited was Georgia, and that's because I used to work in that country.
Yeah.
I want to say hello to some of the folks, but I did see some wonderful Asian stuff at the National Restaurant Show, which was a few months ago in Chicago, which coincides with my going to Chinatown in Chicago. So,
Okay, cool. Well, we've also got Cliff Garstang back on the show, and you can go to cliffordgarstang.com. Everyone's links are in the episode notes, and Cliff is an amazing author and writer and has lived all over the world, and including Singapore. And so this is what's interesting. We talk about Chinatown. He's going to touch on Chinatown and Singapore. So welcome back, Cliff. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, this is cool. So this is a cool topic. You didn't think we're going to pull that one on you on Big Blend Radio, right? Like Chinatown. And I like, as soon as I put it out there, I had a feeling you would say, all right, I want to do something on this. And I was going to go, where is he going to go on this? And of course he went to Singapore, but I still thought, really? So I'm still going, really? That's it. So this is something really around the world, right? It's really about where people move to, really.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that's unique about Singapore, when I tell people about Chinatown in Singapore, they're like, wait, isn't the whole place Chinese? And it sort of is. I mean, 70 or 75% of the population is of Chinese descent, but it was a British colony. And so the Chinese immigrants were basically segregated into a part of the city that is now what we call Chinatown. So there is definitely a distinct part of the city that is full of more traditional Chinese shops and restaurants. And I was going to say Chinese people, but as originally, they're all over the place anyway. So, but it's very clear. And the background here is a historical picture of the Chinatown settlement.
Yeah, so that growing up in Kenya and South Africa, we did have a lot of Asian friends, and neighbors and part of our community, but it didn't seem kind of like the communities in Africa, like you would have like your Muslim community and your Hindu community and things like that. But on the Asian side, it just kind of was like everyone is around. Maybe it just was as kids, we just didn't really pay attention to boundaries, we're just friends. So I don't know if it was that, but in school they were with me, so everyone being in a town coming to America was the first time I heard of a Chinatown. And it was like, why do you have to have your own space? And then when I started to really learn about California's history, I went, oh yeah. And wow, we really do need to touch on this because I think I'm really glad we're doing this show because I think our country still is having a issue of uniting a little bit more than what we should. And I think the pandemic didn't help things. World War II. I've interviewed people with their families that were actually in Manzanar and places like that. They were in internment camps, and that was more on the Japanese side, but it is in a way connected, right? And so I think about talking about Chinatowns is a really cool thing because maybe it creates a little bit of unity. What do you think, Jeff? Going to these places through food, maybe we can open the doors of our heart a little bit wider and have more understanding.
It certainly helps. But one of the things about these various ethnic communities is that people tend to live where there are other people like them.
Yeah.
And when you start dealing with commerce and you have all these, various stores that cater to those populations, they want to have everybody close together so that if they need one thing over here and then they need another thing over here and it's all ethnically motivated, then it's one-stop shop.
So this is all about ease. And because I know when, living in different places, and if there's a store that has my British food, like I want my Marmite and Vegemite and stuff that none of you guys want to eat. I know you don't, right? And come on now.
Stuff.
No, anyway, so I do eat it. I really do. I could bring it out for you now. I've got giant jars of Marmite. I get it. And I do understand that. And yet at the same time, we are welcome in there if we're not Chinese, right? Because everybody does want to make a sale at the end of the day. And, isn't that important too? That we are able to go to San Francisco, go to Chinatown. It is part of travel.
Yeah, but one of the things that I find interesting is, they always say if you want to get really good, authentic Chinese food, look to see who's eating in the place. And if there are other Chinese people in there, then it must be good. And in Chinese restaurants, there's usually a lot of places, they have one menu for the Chinese and then another menu for us ignorant Americans. Sometimes it's nice to pick off of the Chinese menu because there's, I don't know if you want the frogs and the soft shell turtles and all the exotic stuff, but some of the things are actually quite good.
Now, Cliff, what menu do you go for?
Well, ideally, I'm with someone who can read the Chinese menu. I mean, I can read some Chinese on menus, but I don't really know what specialties are. In my most recent book, I have a scene, which is set in Singapore. I have a scene where the American goes to Sichuan style restaurant with some locals, and the host, the local, doesn't even bother to look at the menu. He knows what he wants. And so he just tells the waiter what dishes to bring. And I think that's also a pretty common thing. If you know the place, you don't even have to look at the menu.
Okay. Yeah, you get to know them and understand it. Now, what about for someone that has never ever had Chinese food at all? Yeah, where's the beginning? Like for Nancy and I have to be honest, we're allergic to seafood and fish and all of that. So we are very careful. And because especially if there's a language barrier, allergies don't always translate, and fish sauce I know is used in so many things. So we are very, very careful. So in fact, I don't think we get to go to we don't get the experience that you guys do for sure. Like it's like going to Louisiana. We don't get to eat all the crawfish and the shrimp and all of that everybody gets to enjoy because of it. So I'm going to have to take you guys with us wherever we go, so you guys can eat it. But what would you say, Jeff, starting with you, for someone going to Chinatown for the first time, what would be for beginners the first thing to do?
Look at the menu and see, because they have the descriptions of what's in the stuff. And if it sounds reasonably familiar and interesting, try it. As the Alka-Seltzer commercials say, try it, you'll like it. It's worth dining out as an adventure. So open yourself up to that and try things. I mean, I see things on the menu that I don't know what they are. Okay, I'll try it. And sometimes even the description of the thing, because they don't translate properly. And I don't know what it is, but the description seems it's worth the risk. So I just say go in and just try. I'd say have some dumplings, whatever they have on the menu, if they call it dim sum or if they just call it dumplings. Those are usually pretty safe. I've never had one that's just far too out there. And then the noodle dishes or the stir-fried rice or, the General Tso's chicken or, they're things that are just easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So do the basics and then step up from there to there. Is there a heat index for them, like with what they do?
Yeah,
depends on the style, right? Some Sichuan and Hunan Chinese style restaurants could be spicy, but Northern Chinese, not so much. Southern Chinese, also not so much. But there are different styles that have lots of spice.
And most menus will have little indicators. Either they'll have the tiny little chili peppers next to the dish or something telling you that it's spicy. I made the mistake of ordering something. I told the guy I wanted something spicy. And I swear to God, there were more red peppers on the plate than there was the chicken.
Maybe they messed with you. Yeah.
One of my favorite things is the sizzling shrimp with the red peppers. That's comes out on this platter, and there are all these gorgeous thick shrimp, and also they're buried in these red peppers. And you're not really supposed to eat the red peppers, but some people do just to.
Now, if there is someone that's never been to a Chinese restaurant, right now there are a few dishes that are trending. One is beef chow fun, which is basically just thinly sliced beef with noodles. It's a real safe bet, and it's good. It's one of my favorite dishes. And then there's, if you do like spicy, and it's an interesting spice because it's made with Szechuan peppercorns, and that's mapo tofu. And Szechuan peppercorns make your mouth tingle and go numb, but it's very
Oh,
tasty.
well, that's fun. That's
Very
fun.
distinctive flavor.
Your book, My Life in Gluttony, did you cover any Chinese dishes in that book?
Yeah, and I'd have to look at the book to remember exactly. Only because
I have it.
I'm either going to cook tonight or tomorrow, and I'm making a char kway teow, which is noodles with. I've got these different shrimp cake things, seafood cake things. I have no idea what they are. I buy them from the Chinese shop, and they taste good, but I have no idea what's in them. But it's a noodle, it's a stir fry noodle dish with I put shrimp in there and these fish cakes, and it's good.
Hey, there you go. And The Last Bird of Paradise, that's what, Cliff, you were talking about your last book. So we got to say
Right.
the name. We got to promote here, you know.
Yeah, so The Last Bird of Paradise, Chinatown is a big part of that book. It's where there are a couple of romantic liaisons that go on in Chinatown in Singapore, but lots and lots of food. Singapore is also really well known for its hawker centers, food centers, and char kway teow is one of the very common dishes that you would get in one of these very informal little food centers. So that's something that's very familiar to me.
I have to tell you, I was in Singapore probably about 20 years ago. I was nowhere near as informed about all things culinary then as I am today. All I know is that I went to these hawker centers and looked at what they were making. And if it looked interesting, I said, oh, that. And to this day, I don't know what I had. All I remember is that I had some really great stuff. And it was such a memorable experience.
Mm.
Yeah, the hawker centers are fantastic. You basically get the same thing in Chinatown itself, except that, well, there are a couple of places that are a concentration of different kinds of foods. But the great thing about a hawker center is it's not all Chinese food. You also get Malay and Indian mixed in too. Singapore has a Chinatown, but it also has a little India, and it has another part of town that is more heavily influenced by Malay people. So you've got those kinds of foods as well in those parts of town.
So Singapore, everyone, this is a destination. Let's go back to this country, and a shared destination is Chicago. Cliff, I know, knows Chicago. And so, Jeff, you've been to Chinatown in Chicago. So give us a little rundown on that. And I do want to touch, we're talking a lot about food, but there's other things in Chinatown, right? There's shops, there's places to explore, events. I mean, they celebrate too. And I love the fact that we're actually recording this, yes, for Fortune Cookie Day, which is Japanese, but we're doing it on Chinatown Day here. We're talking about that, but they're served in Chinese restaurants, fortune cookies, but they're apparently Japanese. I don't know. This is just what we saw on the internet. Who knows? But they're fun to make, and it's fun to write your own little things in there, you know, for people at a party, and then hope that the right person picks up the message you gave them. And then, no, it's interesting. Anyway, when Nancy and I used to throw parties, it's pretty good. But going around, you know, the events, like today is a full moon. And I love the Chinese culture for celebrating moons and, you know, just all of that, and color and dragons. And I don't know, that kind of festive, it allows you to shift into a different persona, I think. They understand that. You can have rebirth and renewal seems to be a big part of their culture, you know, from what it seems like with their festivals. Have you ever been to any of the festivals, Jeff?
Not in Chicago, but for Chinese New Year's this past year, one of my friends owns a Chinese restaurant in town, and he always has, every year, he gets the dragon dancers come out.
Ooh.
And so he had the dragon dance. I went for that, and it was so much fun because once the people, when you see the people and you see them put on the mask and you see them get under the thing, but once they're in costume, this beast comes alive, and they've got a percussion ensemble that's doing all of their thing, and this thing's bopping around and shaking its head, and then apparently it has a thing where it can open its mouth. And so from what I understand is you can tip the dragon and you feed money into the mouth.
This is smart.
It's
Smart.
so much fun to watch this. And the dragon went around the building because it's good luck, good fortune for the restaurant for the year to come. And so the dragon went around the building and then it went into the restaurant. There are people dining. It's going around to all the tables and into all the rooms. It was tremendous fun.
I love all of that and all the symbolism and the little coins and everything, those coins that you can get. And then, certain things being in the window to bring. And, the whole culture is just, I think mindfulness brings us down to let's think about what we're doing. I mean, we're in such a fast-paced society that we forget about these little things in life that are about building happiness, right? And, fortune, sustainability. Let's talk about that, But Cliff, have you did they do events like that in Singapore?
Oh, yes, please, constantly. So anytime a new shop opens, you have to have the dragon dancers come to, I'll say, bless it. That's, to bring good fortune to it. So the dragon dance, that's like a profession because they're constantly in demand, and not just on Chinese New Year, but of course, Chinese New Year in Singapore is a major production. It just takes over the whole country and is a lot of fun. Most of the expats leave because it's vacation time and they can go off to a beach somewhere, but it's a big deal for the locals. And again, in The Last Bird of Paradise, Chinese New Year plays a big part of the plot in the story. And the same thing is true in DC. For the Chinatown there is very small and it continues to get smaller, but I used to live just a couple of blocks from DC's Chinatown, and they still do the dragon dances for special events, including Chinese New Year's, and then there are a couple of other events where they do it. But it's kind of a sad story these days because it's shrunk from being a pretty vibrant community because most of the folks have moved out to either Northern Virginia or to Maryland, and there are very large Asian communities in those areas now. So the really good Chinese food is probably in like Manassas or Northern Virginia somewhere.
Wow. Okay. Yes, you know what? I got lost in Manassas one night. And no, really. We were driving
That's
from
title for Cliff's next book, Lost in Manassas.
Yeah, we were. And we were driving from Pennsylvania through an ice storm kind of thing coming through. Like not ice, but snow and listen, I know that winter stuff that happens is insane. And I remember Nancy and I were like, no. And then we got, I don't know, I did some turn somewhere just to get gas and I ended up downtown Manassas and whatever. But there really was like just one Asian restaurant after the other and all neon signs. And I love it too. Like I remember Anthony Bourdain did a episode where he would go to strip malls in California for Chinese food and Asian food. And he's like, please just stop with the glamour. Just go to the strip malls. Go to where the people live, and that's where your food is. Yeah. Get over the touristy stuff. Go to the hole in the wall. That's where you're going to find it. And but I remember Manassas, I'm like, look at all these, it were just bright lights and kind of like, non-touristy lights. It was like just, we got the food come and I'm so stuck in traffic and I have no idea where I am. But anyway, we got out of that. But I want to go back to Chicago because I do remember to come back around. But Chicago, yeah. So go for it, Jeff, because I know that Cliff's got to have had some experiences in Chicago with Chinatown out there.
Well, I love the Chinatown. It is a vibrant Chinatown, and it's not just for tourists, and there are excellent restaurants there. And so whenever I'm in town, whether I'm with friends or on my own, I always go. One time I went in and just went restaurant to restaurant, and I ordered 2 or 3 different styles of dim sum, always having one be the same so I could compare them to see if one place was better than the other. So I do have a recommendation. There's a place there called Ming Hin Cuisine, and it is, for my money, probably the best overall Chinese restaurant, and they have excellent dim sum. But then there's another place called Lao Tse Chuan, and that's good for just Chinese. They have a really eclectic menu, which is why I like it. And so lots of good stuff to try. And then if you have a chance, there's a place called, I'm probably going to butcher this, King Chang Yuan Dumplings. And they make their dumplings fresh. If you go to the back of the restaurant, back of the dining room, you can see them. They have a window and you see all these people there and they're just busily making dumplings. But when you order the dumplings there, they come 12 to a plate. It's not like the steamer things. They come 12 to a plate and they're only and they're all the same. And so if you want to have 4 or 5 or 6 different varieties, you have to come with a group. I've only been there with 2 of us, and I think we ordered 3 things and we ended up taking half of it home. But it's very good. One last thing that I'll mention, and that's that there, and I don't remember where exactly the place was, but my friend said to me, very adventurous eater, and he goes, Jeff, do you want to go to a place they serve pickled fish? And the first thing that went through my mind was kind of like pickled herring, that's in the jar with the marinade. And I go,
Mine is lutefisk.
okay, well, yeah, and
That's
I
for
want
yeah.
pickled fish. Anyway, the place is called Yao Yao, and I don't recall if it's either Michelin starred or it's James Beard awarded. But this stuff, it comes in a really big bowl. So you want to, if it's just a couple of you, two or three of you, you get the smaller thing. But it's fabulous. It's very different. It won't be like any Chinese you'll have anywhere else, but it's really worthwhile.
Wow, this is interesting. So it seems that Chicago's going more like a communal style of eating
Well,
with so much on a.
I think that's the best way to have Chinese food. Go with a group, get it one of the tables with the lazy Susan in the middle, and order 12 different things and have at it.
Yeah, most Asian or Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Thai, all of those really work better as communal events. That way you can have a lot of different things and share dishes.
That's again going back to today's climate. We need more of that. Yeah.
And you have to let everybody know that it's okay. I was just going to say, it's okay to have a fork. If you go and you don't know what you're doing, it's just ask for a fork, they'll bring it.
I was just going to say that I also like Chinatown in Chicago. The last time I was there a few years ago, I forgot why I had time to be a tourist, but I did. Anyways, I hopped on the L and went down to Chinatown and really had fun exploring. I didn't eat at quite so many places, and I don't remember the names of any of them, but I ate a lot, drank some tea and shopped, and it is a fun place.
Okay, so the tea, that's a thing too. It's different than us just having like, here's the English kind of tea, but also the English and Chinese tea kind of connect in some history, right? Because of colonialism, right? So we do have that kind of touching base, right? But then isn't there different kind of celebrations in tea for the Chinese?
Absolutely. People don't think of there being a tea ceremony in Chinese, but there definitely is. And the last time I was in Singapore, just a few years ago, I went to a tea house in Chinatown, and I was just by myself. So it made it kind of ridiculous to have this person sitting there making the tea and serving it on this elaborate tea service and serving me all kinds of cookies and things that go with it. But it can be quite a production.
Wow. Well, next time you need someone to help you with cookies, I'm here. Just call me. I'm coming for the cookies. I better not say it. I have a dog here, so they know that word.
I've also been to, I've been to tea plantations in China and elsewhere.
Wow.
And it's, it's amazing to have tea that is, you've seen it picked right from the bush. It's quite a production.
It is.
One of the other things about Chicago's Chinatown, and it applies to probably most Chinatowns, is if you can go into the various stores and everything is ethnically skewed. And so whether it's clothing or housewares, I like going into the grocery stores because you get to see, I don't know what half of the stuff is, but it's fun to see all the variations. In Chicago, and this is relatively new, but just adjacent to Chinatown, it's still in the same neighborhood, but there's a place called Marketplace 88, and it is huge. And it's a grocery store, and then they've got a number of food outlets, both in the store and then around it in the center. One of the biggest Asian grocery stores I've ever been in. And it was so much fun to wander around and look at this. I saw cookies and candies and things. I have no idea what they were. This stuff is wild. And it's a matter of, do you want to just, toss away a little money with the chance that you take one bite and throw it out, or you take one bite and you'll love it. And that's the answer.
Now, for you, Jeff, is there something you cannot or do not eat? Like Nancy and I have these allergies to fish, right? So it's really, we can't just go buy something because it looks like something interesting to try, because then we end up, and being, the slave to the EpiPen is not my idea of a good time, so it's, or hospitals or anything medical, quite frankly. So for you, do you have anything that is a no-no, or do you just go for it?
I try not to eat organ meat. A lot of it. I like pate. I like kosher style.
You're gonna have fun in Louisiana.
Yeah, but the other organ meats, nah. And I don't eat the weird animals. We have a market here in Jacksonville, and they have all the seafood. You walk in, and there are live frogs, there are live eels, soft shell turtles. They have certain species of fish and shellfish. I have no idea. Snail things. I have no idea what this stuff is. Don't have any idea how to cook it. No thanks. If I really want to be adventurous in that way, I'll go to a restaurant and try it.
Okay. What about you, Cliff? What's your level of no?
Well, for health reasons, there aren't very many things I can't eat, although in my old age, I'm supposed to be staying away from things like lobster and shrimp, which is too bad because I really love both. But it probably wouldn't kill me. So if it's on the table, I would definitely have a chunk of shrimp if necessary. But I don't like I'm like Jeff. I don't really love the really exotic things that I've been faced with in China. Snake, I'm not really a big fan of snake, but I've had snake soup and turtle soup and frog. But I wouldn't go out of my way to order those. If somebody orders them for the table, I'd taste it.
It's hard. Yeah, the polite thing. Having to do the polite thing, right? We all do it. And, it's sometimes I'm really glad about allergies. Like if you're in China, I had a friend that went to China and she's like, they're eating scorpions. And I'm like, no, scorpions are too close to shellfish. We're definitely allergic.
But that's the fun thing about Chinese restaurants is you go in there, if they have the genuine Chinese stuff, when you read the menu, some of the stuff, it's just entertaining. Oh my God, they make this. We should order this. I mean, it's always a joke. It's the stuff that we don't want. It's like, I can't believe they make this. It'd be like pig's tail or, goat tongue or whatever. It's just stuff that you would never think would be a food, and it is.
Is oxtail really oxtail? It is? Oxtail soup is good. That was a big staple in Africa, oxtail soup.
Oxtails can be, the size of your arm. They get pretty meaty.
We used to have them, but I always wondered if it was real ox, or just like, you know what I mean? Because but oxtail, I remember that being everywhere in Africa, like oxtail, like everywhere. And
a lot of cultures eat everything. They eat every part of the animals.
Well, when you get to Lafayette, Louisiana, frogs included, alligators included, organ meat is included. So I'm just telling you, and some of that boudin, there's hogshead cheese in those shops. I'm just telling you. So be prepared. Just telling you. I know we're talking China, but
don't
also,
ask, don't tell.
Louisiana also has Chinatowns, like maybe not like a whole Chinatown district, but the Chinese food culture is also very prevalent in Louisiana, and I think everywhere, which is cool to me. Like in Central California is a place that, like Tulare County and the San Joaquin Valley. So all these people came, and San Francisco, part of its legacy is because of, the Chinese railroad workers and what they did. I mean, we owe so much to that legacy of that city, to their work of what they did. And America does for the railroads. I mean, they were eating, I know we're going to do oysters, but remember I was talking on the show the other day with you about oysters in Tombstone, Arizona? Nancy just watched a documentary on Wyatt Earp, and they were in Tombstone, and they talked about oysters in Tombstone. I'm like, you see, I'm right. It's the railroad. But if we talk about, Chinatown, these are all the ancestral people that made all these places happen because of the railroad. So these goods, I think, they're part of this legacy. I mean, even asparagus goes into a Chinese lady in Nevada outside Vegas is the one who brought white asparagus to this country. She grew it outside where the strip is, just grew asparagus and covered it. And we had white asparagus that would go to San Francisco. So I wonder about San Francisco being this cultural melting pot of food. But if you really go back to the ancestral roots, obviously the indigenous people are Native American fellows and friends. And then we've got the Spanish coming in, the Mexican, right? But when you think about the Chinese, their legacy there is pretty darn big. Because none of the railroad systems, and I don't even think, we've got a port, so that makes sense for getting their ingredients. Yeah, this is huge what they did. Yeah, it's so huge. So I think going to Chinatowns, to me, is just celebrating this culture that is part of the setup of this country. and we forget that. It is fun to go and eat food, but do they have museums for their history or anything like that? That in any of the Chinatowns that you've been to that kind of tell their story? Or do they kind of keep it to themselves and then, it's on the other side of, the town or something? Trying to think. I don't think I've seen a museum, but
It
Central
has to.
Valley, I see their history in the museums that tell the history of the town, or um, the Central Valley, like Visalia and Tulare and all of these areas, which is the breadbasket of the world, they grow between 200 to 300 crops there, and they're one of the biggest dairy places in the world. And they have the Hmong people there, which the Hmong people lost their home. And they're there, and they go fishing, and they have their own restaurants, and they keep their culture going in these places. So that's kind of what I was wondering about with Chinatowns. Like, there's the events we can go to, there's the food, but what about understanding their history as part of the American makeup? That's what I think is so important. What do you think, Cliff? Have you seen anything on that level anywhere that we can learn from?
I can't think of anything like that in the States. Just, eating the food is a great way to learn about the culture, though. So that's a big part of it. And like Jeff, I really love going into any sort of Asian food grocery store and looking at what's available and getting the real thing. I go into my local store, and the only Asian thing I buy in my regular grocery store is kimchi. I don't really think I get anything else, but if I wanted really good kimchi or good Asian food, I would have to go further away to an Asian store. But that's a great way to learn about the culture.
No, I just did a quick look while we're talking. There is the Chinese Historical Society of America in San Francisco, and they have a building, so I assume there's something there. And then in New York, there's the Museum of Chinese in America.
Okay, cool.
Look, I would imagine there might be something like that in Chicago as well, but I'm not sure. New York and San Francisco are really the big hubs for Chinese in this country as far as the emergence of this country as a place.
Yeah, through Tulare County in the Central Valley, all the different Asian populations are just spread out amongst everyone. And they're the ones, so many different people, cultures are doing the growing. And it's really interesting because we went to all different kind of restaurants there and takeaway and it's pretty amazing. And I think it's left off the list as people always think. It's just kind of because it is really catering, like you're saying, to the locals who are living there. And then as a traveler, it's up to us to step into that local zone and get to learn and have that communication too, right? Because, you talk to the waiting staff, you talk to the chefs if you can, and start to build that relationship. Now, what about Boston? What's going on in Boston? I thought they only eat beans there. I'm kidding.
Lobster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm kind of giving that to Maine right now, but I don't know. I have no clue. So anyway, but yeah, so Boston has a Chinatown.
Does. Yeah.
So you went there. Where were some of your highlights there?
So all of these bigger cities with Chinatowns, I get to go to at least once a year because there are trade shows there. And I always allocate time to go into Chinatown. The hotel I stay at in Boston is literally 4 blocks away from Chinatown. And there's a reason I stay at that hotel. But it's, the experience in all these Chinatowns, for me, the shops are different. The layout of the territory is different, but the adventure is the same, going from place to place, trying this, trying that. Sometimes you just got to look in the window and go, I'm going to go in and try. Now, mind you, I always do a search. I look to see if there's a ranking of the best this or the best that. I found the best dim sum for me so far has been Windsor Dim Sum Cafe, but every time I go, I always try a couple of other places. A chef friend of mine had told me about this place called Gene's Chinese Flatbread. And Gene's Chinese Flatbread, they make these noodle soups where they stretch the noodles. Have you ever seen it? It's one of the fascinating things. You find a restaurant that does the stretching of the noodle. They start out with a wad of dough, and they start stretching it, pulling it and stretching it and folding it and stretching it and folding it and stretching it. And when they're done, they have a gazillion noodles. It's a fascinating process. But anyway, so someone recommended this cheese flatbread place to me, and they do stretch noodles in there. It's a little hole in the wall place. It might seat 10 people. It's a tiny little rat. It looks like it would be rat infested. But it's go. They have this lamb flatbread sandwich that is so not Chinese to me but it was really good. And then I had the bowl of the noodles, and that was good too. One of the things that I'm learning, I'm actually in the midst of writing a story about various Chinese cuisines around, different. We all know Cantonese, we all know Hunan, we all know Szechuan, but there are 8 traditional cuisines in China. And depending on who you talk to, there could be even more. 8 is what's commonly published.
Okay.
But I'm learning about all this. And so when you go into the western part of China, where it gets close to Eastern Europe and where the Silk Road used to go through, they get a lot of these Eastern European influences there. And so the meats that they eat and the spices they use are very different. Now, whether this lamb from Jean's was from that region or not, it's not clear, but it was a really unique experience. I would have never walked in if someone had not recommended it. So if anyone's watching and going to Boston, go to Jean's Chinese Flatbread. Don't be intimidated. Try this lamb sandwich. It's fabulous.
Wow. Wow. Cliff, anything on that since you've been to China?
That sounds great. Well, I also, you may remember that I lived in Kazakhstan for a year.
Yeah.
And so that's just on the western border of China, and there's lots of lamb consumed there. Funnily, one of my favorite places to eat in Almaty, Kazakhstan, was a Chinese restaurant. And that was partly, I went there because I didn't speak Russian or Kazakh, but I did speak some Chinese. So going to a Chinese restaurant was kind of like going into familiar territory. There were also Korean restaurants that I could do the same.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, this basically, when you brought up the Silk Road and you think about that history, this is interesting because of how global it was and how things were all connected. That's the thing. I think it's a melting pot of food and such an ancient civilization, right? That's moved around, and they've had to somehow adapt as well. They weren't able to always get their ingredients right back in the day immediately. So they had to adapt. So I wonder about the taste of food in this country. Nowadays, you can get things imported and all of that, like when you go to the stores. But I wonder about how they had to modify what they wanted, because they weren't getting their supplies from China at one point. That was hard in history. So I wonder how food has changed here. Chinese food has changed here over the times, versus being in their homeland, That'd be
dramatic because for the longest time you couldn't get most of the ingredients, but now you can. And I actually had a chef tell me, he says, if there's something you want to make, you can get the ingredients here. It's probably half of the stuff that I don't understand what it is when I go in the store, into these Chinese grocery stores. It's that stuff. But I think you're pretty safe.
Yeah. And going to those stores, I mean, I love that in any country, right? Is just go in, you have no clue what you're looking at, but I like looking at the marketing of it. What are the colors they're using? And it's just a different kind of thing. Now let's talk about fortune cookies. All these places you've been to, do they serve fortune cookies, or is this an Americanized thing that happened? What's going on with fortune cookies since it's Fortune Cookie Day? Do you want me to tell you your fortune? Maybe not. Just kidding. That's Nancy's job.
Is more global, so I'm curious if he's been getting fortune cookies.
Did they have fortune cookies in Singapore? I want to know.
I don't recall fortune cookies in Singapore, no. Not in Chinese restaurants in Korea, or certainly not in China, so no fortune cookies.
No fortune cookies for you.
Restaurant that I've been to in this country, 95% of the time they give you a fortune cookie.
Now, have you tried to make your own fortune cookies?
I'll leave that to you.
We did that. We did that for a party, and we really did. And then it was about like getting it to like dry in time and then stuff the cookie, the little thing in there. There's like this process to it. And I don't think we made them they were like either hard as a rock or chewy and would take your teeth out. It's like, here, you want to pull a tooth? Here, eat Nancy and Lisa's fortune cookie.
I have a feeling you may love your friends better than I love mine.
So that's just, it was, but giving everybody their fortune was kind of fun because you did want to see who got what and see, even if they didn't get it, if the person you wanted to get that fortune, because of course, we're a little twisted, right? Then to see what their face was because they're seeing it anyway. So it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. And I think it's fun to try and cook these things. I mean, you do that, right, Jeff? You try to cook some of these meals.
Not fortune cookies, but yes, I try a
Well,
lot of things.
yeah, I mean, it's fun to try it. That's the thing. It's like there's ingredients, but that has vanilla in it, and that's more Mexico. So I don't know. But have you tried any Chinese cooking, Cliff?
Definitely have. In fact, I remember, my second book, What the Zhang Boys Know, is set near Chinatown in DC, and it's about a Chinese family. And I remember doing a podcast with something about cookbooks, but it was about fiction, not cooking. Anyway, one of the requirements was I had to come up with a book appropriate recipe, and I ended up doing beef and broccoli stir fry. And in order to talk about it on this podcast, I had to make it, of course. And so that is the dish that I associate with that book.
Okay, so where would that traditionally come from?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's not spicy, so it wouldn't be Sichuan or Hunan. It's more of a northern Chinese dish, I guess.
Okay, that's cool though, to be able to do food. I always get people, I want people to do a music playlist to all their books. Like I'm going to knock on both of them. You're like, come on, man, I'll help you. Let's do it. It's so cool. But, a cookbook, like recipes from your books, that'd be cool. And Jeff, you've obviously got recipes in your book, so that's, because your life in gluttony, you have to try it all. But
I do want to comment, because you're talking about fortune cookies and you're talking about books. For anybody that's curious about the history of Chinese restaurants in America, there's a very good book called The Fortune Cookie Chronicles. It's by a woman named Jennifer Lee. And it starts out telling about how all of these people were winning some state's lottery. And statistically, they'd never had this many winners before. And it turned out that the fortune cookie, the lottery numbers, how you get your fortunes in the cookie and they had the lottery numbers in the back?
Yeah.
Well, apparently this lottery number was in a whole bunch of fortune cookies and it hit. And so
That's funny.
people were winning.
That is really cool.
But the book's cool. It talks about how the restaurants evolved and why they serve what they serve. And I think there's a documentary on the search for General Tso's chicken too, which is kind of a similar tale.
In closing, I wanted to just give a shout out to the Pacific Northwest, because there's a big Chinese population out there. And then going into Vancouver and British Columbia, Richmond, there is a dumpling trail. I know that from travel writer Linda Kassam did the dumpling trail. And so when I think of dumplings, it is not the dumplings y'all are talking about at all. Like these dumplings are, they're beautiful. And I think they're like what you were talking about, Jeffrey, like these beautiful, intricate, this is not dumplings in the South. This is not like stew and dumplings kind of thing. No, I just wanted to be clear on that. But they have a whole dumpling trail in British Columbia and through Richmond and Vancouver area.
Add 2 points of interest before we wind up.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, if anyone's going to San Francisco, because they've got a wonderful Chinatown, there is a place there called the Palette Tea House, and it's over by the Ghirardelli chocolate building, over by the harbor. And they have fabulously designed dim sum. They have the traditional stuff, but then they have these really cool exotic creations all their own. So it's a worthwhile place to go. And then the other place I wanted to recommend, and this was purely by accident, I was in New York in Chinatown with some friends, and it started raining and we didn't have umbrellas. And so we ducked under the first overhang we could find. And while we're standing there waiting for the rain to pass, happened to look across the street and there was this little shop, and it's a chopstick store. It's called Yunhong Chopsticks. It's on 50 Mott Street. And I asked if I could take pictures, and they said, no, we have tourist groups that come here. They can take pictures in the store. You can stand out at the street and shoot through the door, but you can't come in. But fabulous chopsticks that are, I'm looking forward to the next time I have time to go into Chinatown. I want to go back and I want to buy some of them because I'm bored with the ones I've got. And just, the colors and the inlays and it's really worth going.
Yeah, because that's an art form. I have seen the largest pair of chopsticks in the world.
Where?
Long Island, Washington. They have, I'm not kidding. I got to give a shout out to Pacific Northwest. And it is like a full block of that is chopsticks. I will send you the photo. And then they also have a razor clam that if you give it a quarter, it will spit water at you. And up the road, they have the world's largest oyster. Speaking of oysters, for August 5th, when we do Oyster Day.
You
The
must be
world's
great at parties with this information.
Well, you put me in the deep end of doing Chinatown. I have no clue on. So all I can bring up is fortune cookies that will tell people their fortune in and tasted really bad. And the world's largest chopsticks. I think that's pretty good. World's largest
But
chopsticks.
speaking of chopsticks, Singapore has something that is popularly referred to as the Chopsticks Monument, but it's actually a war memorial. It just looks sort of like chopsticks. It's two sticks. It looks more like an upside down clothespin, actually. Anyway, it's the Chopsticks Memorial.
Oh, wow. And so it's from a war?
It's a memorial to the World War II victims, I think.
Wow. 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 Well, that's a sobering way to close today's show off. There it is. All right. Well, no, that's the thing of it all. That's what I think is so cool. I'm glad Jeff, made me personally spread my wings a little bit here and not because I don't know anything, about Chinese food because we typically just are concerned about it. And, I did eat Chinese food at my friend's house because they knew the allergies and were conscious. So I think that's a good way is to just go make friends and then you'll be fine, So very cool. Thank you both so much for sharing your stories, and everyone that's watching this on YouTube, check out Cliff's name and his background. I mean, that's pretty cool. So is that a stamp that someone made for you?
That is a stamp that I actually concocted on an app on the internet. I do have several of these chops seals that I got either in China or Korea. So when I lived in Korea, I was given this Korean name with Chinese characters. And so that's what's in there. It's Kangunjur is the Chinese pronunciation of my name. In Korean, it's Kankunshik.
Interesting.
Well, there you go. Very cool. Thank you guys, everyone. CliffordGarstang.com, The Last Bird of Paradise, is out now. And My Life in Gluttony, go get it now from Jeffrey Spear. And you can go to spearwrites.com. All the links are in the episode notes. Thank you so much. Thanks for the inspiration, Jeff. And thanks so much, Cliff, for giving us some overseas context to all of this as well. Take care, guys.
Good to see you, Cliff. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.